Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ma'am Rachel. I'll be taking you guys today for public law, precisely chapter 9. For my students, you guys all know I've already sent a note for chapter 9. So you can just grab your note and follow the explanation as we go along. Alright. So basically chapter 9 in our textbook, which is Public Law by A. Kruger, it's found on page 66 to 69, which basically deals with the sources of administrative law. So we have various sources of administrative law, and the first one is the Constitution, and which is like the fundamental source of our administrative law. Basically, the Constitution does what? It divides or it designates the different organs of the state, which actually administrative law is also part of the institution within the state, and it also does what? Applying the principles or their rules and regulation. Secondly, we are going to talk about legislation. What is legislation? Legislations are laws. Basically, when we talk about legislations, we are talking about laws. And how do laws come into place? They are being put by an organ of the state, which is the parliament. So, for a rule or a behavior or a conduct to become law, it should pass through the parliament for voting for it to become a law. Thirdly, we talk about proclamations. What are proclamations, guys? Proclamation is a statement made by a state authority. For example, let's use the example that just happened not long ago with the president. With the outbreak of the coronavirus, the president actually declares what? Comes out, make a speech and declares coronavirus a state of emergency. That's a very good example of what proclamations are about. We also talked about regulations as a source of administrative law. Regulations are basically almost the same like legislations. They are those laws, those rules that must be followed within their administration. We talk about judicial review. When we talk about judicial review, the first thing when you hear judicial, you should focus on courts. So this part, it gives the court the power or the authority to do what? To review decisions of administrative institutions of the state. We look at the next source of administrative law, which is customary law. Guys, even at the beginning of our chapter, of our class, of our course, we looked at the general sources of law. Customary law was part of the sources of law. What is customary law basically? These are unwritten laws. Those are laws that are not written anywhere. But for a particular rule to be considered as customary law, you must make sure that it has been practiced for over a very long period of time. And it must have been practiced by a specific group of people. Thirdly, you must make sure that the particular law or rule to be considered as customary law, it must be clear. It must be very, very clear. I'm sure if you look at this particular question, you can find it in question paper for the year 2013 and 2014. The topic as a whole, when you come to sources of administrative law, is a very fertile, area for the course. Sometimes you are asked to do what? To list maybe 4 or 5 sources of administrative law, and sometimes you are given a question from there for section B, which will ask you maybe to give and explain maybe 3 or 4 sources of administrative law. Just like here, you can see I put in bracket, I put 2013, I put 2014, which means the question actually appeared in the exam paper for 2013 and 2014. And when a question repeats itself, what does it say in your mind? You should say in your mind that it's a very fertile area that you must be very, very versed with when you prepare for the exam. We're also going to look at the next source of law, which is indigenous law. Indigenous law, just like customary law, they are not written. But the difference between the customary law and indigenous law is this should be practiced by a small group of people. and it must also have been practiced for a very long period of time. For example, let's use a very simple example. Within, let's say, the tribe of the Zulu people in South Africa, if a man wants to get married to a woman, the person must pay lobola, what they call lobola, which is the dowry for the woman to be officially recognized as your wife. That's what an indigenous law or a customary law. And that practice has been from one generation to another. For example, you can't just come up today and say, I am a vendor, and in my culture, they say we must eat frogs. And said, no, it's an indigenous law, it's a customary law that has been practiced by my vendor people for over a period of time. They'll be like, no, because they are elders who are still living, they are old people who are still living. And if it's a practice that has been going on for over generations, it doesn't matter if you come from Venda or you come from Setswana or you're a Zulu person, you should be aware. Just like the example I gave about the issue of lobola. Lobola payment, it's not written in any law or in any legislation. Remember, I told you legislation is basically law. It's not written anywhere in the law that lobola must be paid, but it is a customary law and indigenous law of the different tribes of the different black tribes of South Africa, where they actually, you know that if you have to get married, then you have to pay lobola. And it's a practice that has been practiced for over a long period of time from one generation. It has been passed from one generation to another. The last part of our source of law that we are going to look at today is legal writings or writings of modern authors. This particular question came in 2014 and in 2019, where you were asked to in section B, which is the short question type, which is actually a question of maybe 5, 7, or 9 marks, or 10 marks, or 12 marks sometimes, depending on how much they want you to write. They were given a question of that the students should explain what legal writings or writings of modern authors are as a source of administrative law. So basically, when we talk about writings of modern authors, we are talking about textbook, we are talking about journal articles that are being published by those who are professionals in the field. For example, if you look at if you go online and just say, for example, you need to get an information about something and just says maybe particularly let's talk about constitutional law as a source of law in South Africa, you are going to have so many articles, journal articles that has been written by professors in the universities. Most often it's been written by the academics, which are mostly working within the universities. They do further research. Basically, these modern writings are what legal research that professors venture into. They read, or sometimes they look at even decisions that have been passed in previous cases. They question some of the laws that were made in that decision. They question them and write, and or in another, at the end of the day, propose better solutions in solving that problem. That is basically what we talk about writings of modern authors are. They can publish it in the form of a textbook. Writings of modern authors can be in the form of a textbook, it can be in the form of a what they call a case note, it can be in the form of a journal article, as I said before. So these are also sources where sometimes judges sitting there in the court, in order for them to pass a decision, they will look at it and say, maybe this author actually analyze or give an appraisal of a point that is also applicable in the case that we are actually dealing with right now. So they will go back there and sometimes take the proposals of the authors that have been written in order for them to pass judgment for that case. That is what basically legal writings are. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's basically the end of our class today. So if you look at the notes that I sent to you guys, I write at the beginning, I'll write outcomes. Basically, outcomes are things that you should be able to do at the end of each chapter. And the first outcome for this particular chapter 9 is what? They ask you to do outline. Sources of administrative law. Guys, when they talk about outline, if a question is given an outline, it's just like a list. Basically, that's what they want you to do. So they can give you, let's say, a question of, let's say, 7 marks or 5 marks. they are asked for, where you are asked to do what? To outline the sources of administrative law. Basically, what they are telling you is to name the different sources. Maybe if they said outline sources of administrative law and they put there 5 marks, for example, or 7 marks, you must be able to understand that you should give at least 5 sources. And if it's a question where they put 7 marks, you must be able to outline 7 sources of administrative law. And the second part is they can tell you to, let's say, list and explain 3 sources of, for example, if they give you a question of list and explain 3 sources, this question should at least go for 9 marks. Why? You're gonna list 3 of the sources. You choose 3 of the sources and you explain, where each one is going to carry at least 3 marks. So guys, as I said before, these are the outcomes. You should be able, at the end of this chapter, you should be able to do what? To outline, to list all the sources of administrative law. And secondly, you should be able to do what? To list and explain at least 3 or 4. For the preparation or examination purpose, you should be able to at least do that for 5. To be on the safe side, you should be able to do what? To list and explain at least 5 sources of administrative law. As I told you, this is a very fertile section of our course, and you should keep this right deep into your heart. Thank you very much, and that's the end of our class today. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you next class.